Shane Ribshack, Football in Focus for another Thursday. Last week, did a little sports in focus last week. Joe Sirera with us again tonight. Shane's Ribshack, News and Record. Did a little sports in focus. Had the volleyball team join us last week, too, from Caldwell Academy.
Guilford.
Had Caldwell last week. Had
Yeah.
Lauren Buss and one of her teammates in last week. I mentioned Lauren Buss. I said, you should be able to buy food for all of us here. Being with the Buss family, you guys from L.A., you got to have a ton of money bringing this back. But that's a great season they had, though.
State championship, first time they've done that. The NCISAA Class 2A. Great achievement for Caldwell Academy Eagles.
And a good week for Northwest as far as leading up to the championship. You didn't win it, but a great season for them, too.
Yeah, they went to Reagan over Halftown, unbeaten Reagan team. Beat them over there, got to the state championship match for the first time. Heck of an achievement for a program that's been strong for a long time. Darlene Joyner, also the girls basketball coach there, has done a great job, more than 20 years there.
Reagan was like about 30-0 going in.
30-0, correct. Yes, you are.
I tell you, Darlene Joyner coaches the volleyball, coaches the I think one time she may have helped coach softball. She's got a wealth of talent.
And she's got
knowledge.
Wealth of knowledge and great assistant coaches, and that's the first thing she'll tell you is how great her assistants are, how much they do for her when she's got that overlap, and just committed kids who work hard and want to succeed and want to do things the right way.
I said Anthony Long, I guess he's still with her in some capacity. He's been there for a good while. And
Indeed.
He's been back when he coached boys basketball the years ago. Had some very good teams, and he's been loyal to the program. I tell you, they need that help, kind of a backup coach. Need a little help on the side. Ralph Kitley can always step in for back.
His daughter, freshman on that team this year, 6'4" freshman for the volleyball team. He's got to be the tallest principal in North Carolina.
Has to be. He's a great guy, too.
Yes.
I mean,
Former Wake Forest standout.
Yep. Salisbury. I think he this past summer, I think he got inducted to the Rowan County Hall of Fame, which he came out of Salisbury.
Right.
They won a state title, but just a great guy, very humble, down to earth, and huge guy.
Class act.
Well, let's get this from Joe Sirera with the News and Record. Going back with Joe for about a week. A couple of things, one or two things that stand out in your mind from last week's football play. A couple of things that stick with you from the past week. One or two maybe from, could be high school, college, pro, but probably high school, I would think.
I was at the Dudley Southeast Guilford game last Friday night. Connell Young for Dudley, 301 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 two-point conversions. That's even. It took me a while to do that math, but 34 points. Just a great game from him, but a little bit of bad blood there. He stayed until the very end, scored his last 2 touchdowns and one of the 2-point conversions in the last 3:20 of the game. Neither coach had kind things to say about the other program afterward. A lot of bad blood there, but 2 good football teams. Dudley just playing great football heading into the playoffs, well deserving of the #1 seed in Class 4A West.
If they ever go back and reorganize football and change the way the game is played, and they can kind of ask for suggestions, Coach Fritz Hessen wanted to say, let's make this a one-quarter game in the future, because he did get that one-quarter win.
Played, and last year they were up, I believe, 20-0 last year at Dudley.
Last year, yeah, 20. That's huge. Last year.
That was on some mistakes by Dudley, but his team has gotten worn down by the depth and the talent of Dudley the last 2 years.
They do start well. And
they come out ready to play.
The Bonner kid's catch was a great catch, too. I think with that left hand, maybe think about
one-hander, left corner of the end zone on a fourth and goal from the 19 because of penalties. Just a great play by him.
4th and goal. You got some good memory on that, too. That is a huge play. 4th and goal from the 19. 4th down catch by Bonner. Kind of makes you think of that Olsen catch in the Panthers game last week.
Very much so.
Too.
Very much so.
Any other things that stand out in particular from last week, big or so big?
Southwest Guilford continues to befuddle me and others, and with a win against High Point Central, a High Point Central team that had been playing great football since they moved Jeffrey Wall from running back to quarterback, and I guess the takeaway from that is Southwest Guilford with Jaron Rainey at quarterback, the sophomore, Coach Eric Rainey's son. They've beaten Andrews with him at quarterback. They've beaten Northwest Guilford with him healthy at quarterback, and now beaten High Point Central with him at quarterback. When he was hurt, they lost some games that they probably shouldn't have lost. He's healthy for the playoffs.
Interesting, too. They would be the High Point City champions, to beating Southwest and beating Central in the same year. That's got a little bit, they hang their hat on that. And like you said, other things, too. This kid's big kid, too. I mean, he's just young. He's only in the 10th grade, like you say. This
gifted athlete and a quarterback from middle school on with a dad who's a pretty good offensive coach,
Yeah.
and it's a perfect situation if he stays healthy.
And if Jeremiah Brown can get involved too in the playoffs, usually big plays or
Heading
big
to Wake
things in
Forest
playoffs,
next year, yep.
A lot of speed, that kid too.
Definitely.
A lot of speed. A couple of things tell me. I was looking at the Dudley stats and looking at Hendon Hooker and Connell Young, and I found Hooker. I think his number was right at, for the season total yards, 2,451, and Young was right at 2,450. I thought that was kind of ironic, 1 yard difference. You look at Hooker's his running and his passing, and Young his running and all his running is also his receiver. He's a great receiver.
He's
in the backfield.
very well, and they'll flex him out in the slot at
sometimes
times.
not in the backfield, it's going in the slot. Yeah,
they'll throw not just little wheel routes and flare passes to him. They'll have him run slants across the middle.
Yeah.
They'll run him down the sideline. Some college is going to get a very, very talented back.
Is it still Syracuse as of right now, I guess?
I would say so. That they've been the leader for him for quite a while. I think they're probably still the school to beat. He's taking a visit up there this Saturday to see them play Clemson.
Boy, that'll be fun. A lot of orange in that game.
Yes,
right?
all orange. Yes, sir.
Interesting. Another thing caught my attention this week too was in a college game. I was over at Guilford College Saturday watching them play Hampton Sydney. Sometimes on those games you're not up in a press box or trying to keep up with a ton of numbers. I got on the Hampton Sydney side and watching it. This one thing caught my attention. This would be great for some kind of documentary, but watching the defense. Defense is on the field. Guilford drives that ball down the field. Long series of plays, finally scores on that defense. Hampton Sydney, they come off the field. They come over there, they're dead tired, take the helmets off. They look like they're about dead. And then Hampton City gets the ball back, 3 downs and out. Looking at defense, seeing that from the sideline, up front and close. And those guys, get in there. They got to get right back in there and take that again. That's tough.
That's the downside of the teams that are going no huddle and spread and that are trying to play fast, is that it's great if you're picking up first downs, but as you just pointed out, if you're going 3 and out, you're throwing your defense out there for so many plays and so quickly that they're going to be tired. And then if the other offense is going no huddle and moving quickly and picking up first downs, the defense isn't getting a chance to substitute much, and they're getting even more gassed. It's a recipe for some of the blowout scores that we see in college football.
And maybe even in college football, I'm seeing some of Guilford just brought up the substitution pattern more so now, not just the same 11 guys who have to play defense the whole game. You're seeing a lot of exchanges, 4 players at a time, maybe getting some guys off the field, a lot of interchange, and that might be leading to what you're saying there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of situational substitution that goes on. I think you see more. It started at the pro level. It's gone to college. It's even gone to the high school levels. Defensive packages where, depending on down and distance, they're bringing in pass rushers, they're taking out run stoppers, they're bringing in extra defensive backs, they're taking out linebackers. You know, it's gotten to the point where the 4A and 3A schools have enough kids that they can have different personnel packages, and you certainly see it at the college level, even Division III.
You look at Dudley, that's a great defensive backfield they've got. That Simeon Gatlin, looking at one of the message boards this week, sometimes get a little extra time, maybe flip by some, kind of what they're saying about some of the games. Sometimes I'm not saying a thing about these games here locally, but sometimes they are. But they were talking about defensive backs. I mentioned Simeon Gatlin among the top defensive backs in the state, and he might be a possibility.
He's a leader for them. He's in the right place. He can cover on passes. He comes up and hits on the run. The only knock on him, maybe a little bit smaller than some teams would like, but he's got offers from Navy, Army. Had an offer from LSU early in the year. I don't know if that's a committable offer at this point, but the service academies play great football, Navy in particular, and Navy has 2 of his former teammates, Nazir Cromartie and Trey Meadows from last year's team, were at Naval Academy Prep this year, headed to Navy next year, so that would be a great place for him to go, and obviously a great school and a great career that would come out of that, but he's a heck of a player. The interesting thing with him...
He looked good on offense last week, too, I thought.
That's what I was just going to bring up. When Ezra Perkins went out, they needed someone to take some of those carries, and early in the game, Southeast was keying on Connell Young. So what happened? Simeon Gatling busts off a couple of 20-plus yard runs, tough runs, hard runs. You know, he's got the ability to do that. He was gassed at the end of the game, though.
Dudley did a smart thing, too, that they came back with Chapman. We hadn't seen Chapman in a few weeks, number 28. They brought him back to kind of fill that void because Simeon going offense and defense at the same time. In those long runs, he did, like you said, got a little bit winded. But it made for a good adjustment by Dudley to bring the other kid back, too.
And I've been hearing that they've got a 6'3", 195-pound sophomore that they may bring up from JV for the playoffs.
What position?
Running back. That they may be able to move Simeon back, but he hasn't played any any varsity games. They were very careful about that this year. Regular season's over now. They're into the playoffs. He can come up. I haven't heard the name, but a couple of Dudley people have told me, watch for this kid, that next year it'll probably be Ezra Perkins, assuming he comes back healthy as the featured back. But this young man will be right behind him and pushing him.
I'll tell you, Gatlin, the thing about him, he wants to be out there too. He loves to be in that situation. Not the kind of guy that's timid at all about what he loves to get in there and run.
He wants the game in his hands, maybe not literally, but figuratively. He wants the plays to come at him on the defensive side. He wants the ball on offense. He just wants to play football, and you love watching kids like that.
How many teams watching the games tomorrow? We got 10 Guilford County teams going in. How many coming out of tomorrow night's round one we have left for round two, you feel like?
Guilford County, look, I'm cheating here. I've got my list in front of me. Doing a quick count here. I'm going to say 5 teams out of Guilford County. And those would be Page, home against Lumberton in Class 4AA East. I'm calling Southwest Guilford to go to Watauga and pull an upset.
I think they're going to pull one too. I've been hearing the same. Talked to Coach Tommy Norwood at the Guilford game last Saturday. Said I told him what he'd seen as far as he said Southwest can beat that team, and he knows.
It's a 9-8 game, so it isn't that big an upset in terms of seeding. But Watauga is 8-3, Southwest 5-6. But like I said earlier, looking at Southwest, if you look at the games Jaron Rainey played and the games he didn't play, that's kind of how their season's fallen. They weren't going to beat East Forsyth, but that's kind of how their season's fallen there. High Point Central, I was buying on High Point Central going into that game with Southwest. Now I'm kind of a sell. They give up a lot of big plays. That's the hang-up with them. It's been the hang-up going back to the Jamboree at Dudley before the season. They scrimmaged Charlotte Vance, and in a 20-minute controlled segment, they give up 6 touchdowns. And that's Vance is a good team, an explosive offensive team, but that's a problem that Central's had all year.
I think Vance is about a 6-5 team. That's a very good 6. The teams they've lost to, they've lost some real tough games down there.
Yeah, it's a meat grinder down in their conference down there. Other teams from Guilford County, I look for Andrews, obviously.
I think they're in for a good run there.
Yeah, that's a good team. Playing a team from their conference who they're familiar with, the number 16 seed Randleman. That's a brutal draw for Randleman to have to play them in the regular season and get them in the first round of the playoffs. And those are teams that I would definitely look for. Southern Guilford is the other one that I would look for to advance. I feel pretty good about
round one for them, yeah.
Southern Lee is a decent team. I talked to Coach Brown and their quarterback Rayshawn Knight at Southern Guilford about Southern Lee. They're very impressed with them as athletes. They've got some big corners, which will present a challenge for Southern's big receivers. But I think the way that team has played defense, they've only given up more than 1 touchdown in a game twice all year. That's a strong team, and one that without Reggie Gillespie has really regrouped nicely and shown what kind of a program they are.
Knight has really come around well and gotten better throughout the year. 1,600 plus yards passing and a decent little run or two to go with it. But he's had a very good, not a huge kid either, but he's had a very good year.
Yeah, and I mean, Coach Brown talked to us a little bit about that this week, about how what they did was after they were a 1-2 start, after they lost 10-0 to Southeast Guilford, that he simplified things for him. He said Rayshawn can handle everything that they were throwing at him earlier in the year, but they wanted him to just be able to play loose, play football, not have to think quite as much. So they took away a few pre-snap reads from him. He still has some to make, but they took away a few of them, took them back on themselves as coaches, and he's just been a different quarterback since then, and he's a big reason they're where they are.
Don't feel too inclined to lean toward guys like Northwest, Northern Guilford, and some of the others on the road then.
Yeah, Northwest going to Garner. Northwest has,
and that's Garner High School, now called Garner Magnet, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that's. I won't get into the politics of magnets and academies. We could do a whole show on that, but
we could do a book on that.
Yeah, but Northwest is just not playing their best football right now. Thomas Hennigan is a great player. Trey Turner is a good player. Kyle Finney's a good player on offense. Cameron Cloud. They've got weapons on offense. They've just had trouble getting the ball to them.
Hennigan may have come to the point where he may realize he's better as he's getting the ball instead of trying to get the ball to somebody else. He's better at getting the ball himself than getting it to another player. It's tough sometimes.
They've done some stuff with direct snaps to him. They've done some things to try to get it in his hands more this year, but I think there's a lot of frustration there. It came out at the end of the East Forsyth game with Coach Rolfus being frustrated that East Forsyth threw a late touchdown pass, and I think they realize what kind of season they could have had, and they're frustrated that it hasn't happened for them.
Big difference in a 7-4 and an 8-3. That's a large scale difference.
And, really, if you look back at their losses, other than the East Forsyth game, those games were there for them. They were there for the taking.
The games before that they'd won, like the Southwest and the High Point Centrals and games like that, those are games that they were dropping this year that they'd won in the past.
Yeah, and I think some of that was turnovers, obviously, if you look back at those games.
And plus, like you said, with the emergence of Rainey, that's a big emergence there, too.
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely. But yeah, you talked about Northwest. I think that's going to be tough. Page concerns me a little bit, not because of the talent and the coaching there. I think both elements are there in a big way. But where are their heads at? Have they recovered from the second half, in particular the fourth quarter, that Dudley game, when they got knocked around and they did not respond well in that game? A few plays that, if they had gone another way in that game, could have made that a very different game. But where are their heads at? Are they confident? If they've got their swagger back, if they're ready to play, that's a team that's more than capable of making a run to the state semifinals. I mean, the talent is certainly there on offense and defense. I mean, one of the most impressive defensive players I've seen, even that night against Dudley this year, was Elijah Darasuba for them.
He had a great
night. He was in the Dudley backfield all night. He was unblockable by Isaiah Little and some of their offensive linemen. He just had a phenomenal night. There's talent aplenty there. That team, if their heads are in the right place, could do some damage. Mentioned High Point Central earlier. I was high on them until Southwest beat them. Now I'm kind of a sell on them. Southeast Guilford, I mean, 8-3, and they have to go to 10-1 North Davidson.
We told John Swihart, we almost guaranteed John at Southeast we get at least one home game, we thought.
That's brutal against a North Davidson team that is a very, very good football team with Kennedy McCoy at running back. I mean, 10-1, that's a good team. That's a brutal situation for them to be put in. Another team in one of those 10-7 games, not a Guilford County team, but plays a lot of them. Moorhead, last week, they beat Northern Guilford 31-27. They're 8-3, their best year since they were 9-4 in 2005. And what's their reward? They go to Western Alamance, one of the two teams in their conference that's beaten them. It's not fair. I mean, I think the brackets are complicated enough to put together, but I don't think it's fair that two teams from the same conference should have to play each other in the first round.
What a draw. When you look at a team like Eastern Guilford played their rear end off to get that win against Rockingham County, and then you get Havelock on a platter. Here you go.
Yeah, they have to go down to Havelock. That's brutal. But just having those two teams from the same conference, we've got it with Randleman and Andrews. It just doesn't seem fair that they should have to do that. But I know the job that the NCHSAA folks have putting together those brackets is tough.
It seems a lot smoother this year than it was last year. Things seem we were at the same place we were last year.
Yeah.
This time right now it'd be a whole lot, because it was pretty crazy about this time last year.
Yeah.
Spent too much time down on Eugene Street last year, down that way. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of issues this year. A team, Southern Pines Pinecrest, was basically had to forfeit all of their regular season games except their finale for another 8-quarter rule violation, and they were taken out of the bracket, and they would have been a high seed in 4AA East before it even started. So there was less of having to deal with it beforehand. As you say, all of their appeals were exhausted by Friday afternoon, and it was done.
That's pretty good to have it done before they even begin to do the seedings. That's pretty good to have that out of the way. You know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Q Tucker, got to give Q a thumbs up on that. The interim commissioner doing a good job there.
Yeah, from up in Rockingham County. Yep.
Reedsville girl, NC State woman back in the day, and so the best chance to bring the titles home, you lean toward Dudley, High Point Andrews, and anybody. I know you're leaning toward around the area, East Forsyth, probably Eastern Alamance. We've got some teams have good chances to bring. Since they went to the split and went like 4AA and 4A, 3AA, there's more chance, more opportunities, and we've got some good chances again this year.
Yeah, the teams you mentioned certainly. Dudley got a very nice draw. They're only going to have to deal with one of those 4A West teams, and 4A East is easier. I mean, I don't think anyone who looks at those brackets wouldn't tell you that if Dudley can get out of the West, they've got to be seen as a favorite. And I believe that game is in Winston-Salem on Saturday night, December 12th at Wake. That would be a huge night.
It's kind of crazy too that a couple of years ago they were the West. If they seemed the East, they faced Scotland County.
Right.
This year Scotland County is in the bracket with them in the West.
Right, but they wouldn't have to deal with them until the regional final, the way things fell. well.
You'd have to see a winner between Scotland County and Catholic, right?
Charlotte Catholic is in there. I mean, that's a brutal half of that 4A West draw. But I think you've got to look at Dudley the way they're playing. Obviously, you mentioned Andrews. Their only loss was that opener for them, second game of the year for Southwest Guilford. A close game. The fact that it was Andrews' opener had a lot to do with that.
Look at those yards Andrews put.
Oh, yeah.
Last 4,000 plus yards. He got back after back. They got 5 guys who are averaging like probably 7.9 yards a carry when you factor in some 8.3s number. They got some guys running that ball like crazy.
And the defenses that they're playing against know what's coming,
Coach.
and they can't do anything to stop it. You know, that's the beauty of what Andrews has been able to accomplish. I mean, they run a lot of the wing T stuff that Fritz Hessenthaler and the Southeast Guilford Falcons run. They've got the backs to do it, the athletes to do it, the line to do it, and they pretty much say, here's what we're going to do, stop us. And 2 years ago, no one stopped them, and they won the state championship, and they look like they're capable of doing that again.
Now look at that bracket. The whole bracket is all east and west. One name that stands out, I might see that Monroe name in there. I think they're in the other side of that. They're in the west side, Andrews on the east side. I think Monroe, they faced them maybe a couple of years ago in a championship
That's
game.
the team they beat to win it in 2013, and that's the team that eliminated them from the playoffs last year before they subsequently had to forfeit those games.
Monroe, yeah.
It's kind of like Shelby and Reedsville in 2A, whereas Andrews and Monroe are 2AA.
And it was a Friday night game, and they won it all a few years. They got their Friday night job. That is like their job's done. That's the fun about playing Friday night. You get your work in, you get your championship, you kind of relax on the big day, Saturday for others.
Yeah, definitely. And they would be playing their state championship game at the same time as Dudley, but over in Raleigh.
Gotcha.
So that would be an interesting Saturday night for Guilford County if we get both of those teams there. And, you know, East Forsyth certainly has the talent and the coaching to win the whole thing, but for AA West, with all those Mecklenburg County and Union County schools, that's if they come out of there, they will have earned a berth in the state championship.
They're just waiting to knock somebody off down there. We guys like Butler and others down in Mallory Creek, just waiting to knock somebody else off.
Yeah, you know, Vance is well, actually Vance is 4A, but yeah, Cornelius Huff is another great team. I mean, those teams all have losses, but when you look at who they lost to, wow, there's some talent down there.
What about the coach of the year? I got Coach Rainey and Coach Gillespie as primary candidates, and Coach Rainey may be getting an edge right now based upon the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, you know, I think earlier in the season I might have given some serious consideration to Johnny Roscoe at Northern with the way he turned things around there. The injuries have just caught up with them. I don't think you can overlook Rodney McCoy at Andrews. Simply, you know, okay, he's got talent.
He's playing the Coach K and the Dean Smith role. He wins so much every year, you kind of overlook the fact
take
he's
him for
doing so
granted
well.
a little bit, but you know he's done a great job there. You know, there are a lot of good coaches around here, but I think the folks you mentioned do a great job. Stephen Davis does a great job every year. You know, I mean, we are blessed to have some great
lucky to be able to keep
players
these
and
coaches.
coaches.
I'm surprised we don't lose more than we do, maybe going other places, but knock on wood, they're all kind of staying put.
There's enough talent here that I think coaches don't think, as they do in some other parts of the state, that I can't win a state championship here. I've got to go someplace where there's more talent. They don't have to go anywhere else. We've got the talent here.
And the talent, speaking about that talent, Connell Young, Player of the Year? With the senior season?
Depending on what happens in the state playoffs, you know, you want to see what players do on the big stage, but he's already north of 1,900 yards rushing, and as you mentioned, a great receiver too. I would say he's our front runner right now, definitely, yeah.
On defense, who do you look toward there?
Well, for Dudley, Simeon Gatling doesn't have tremendous numbers, but he's a leader. Nigel Peel has put up some monster numbers.
Yeah.
Osanor Kaku gets hurt after 4 games, and he's headed to the Air Force Academy, another academy kid. And you think, wow, how are they going to replace him? Well, Nigel Peel, who's already in the lineup, a junior, steps up well over 100 tackles, closing in on 20 tackles for losses, forced turnovers. I mean, he was everywhere in that Southeast Guilford game. Elijah Darasuba at Page is just a very, very impressive football player. He's a little small to be a lineman at the college level, but he would make a great inside linebacker at the FCS or even FBS level.
You think about Peel, all you see is boom, boom, lateral, side to side, covers the field all night long.
Just a sure tackler, a hard hitter. He can bring it and rush the quarterback. Just another great defensive player for Dudley. We say that every year.
Where are your people going to be at on Friday? That's kind of unveil the responsibilities, where you guys are going.
I will be with the Dudley Panthers at J.H. Harpley Stadium. They're going to be playing McDowell. I don't think there's much doubt even now about the outcome of that game, but We want to be tracking Dudley throughout their playoff run. JP Mundy, who is our 1A for us, he will be at Marion Kirby Stadium for Page and Lumberton.
Yes, he would be around East Forsyth. That's good. He's going to Page. And good.
Our newspaper chain is affiliated with the Winston-Salem Journal, so we're going to get our coverage of East Forsyth from them this week.
Gotcha.
And a freelancer who helps us out quite a bit has done a lot of work for us this year, Ryan Besessi. He's going to be down at Southern Guilford for their game with Southern Lake.
Got him pretty well covered then.
Yeah, and we'll have a couple photographers out there too at Page and Dudley. So good images, good writers, and I know you guys will be talking about the games Friday night. Where are you going to be tomorrow night?
We're going to be at Dudley tomorrow night with myself and Dennis. Going to have Chris Walzer, who's been doing the Northeast games. We're going to switch and do High Point Andrew, who's going to go over there for the playoffs. Got our photographer. She's going to be at Southern Guilford. Got our writer, Wyatt Smith, who'll be at Page. So trying to cover all the county teams.
You got a good lineup too. A strong lineup you can win with.
Yeah, like you say, Dudley's a team that being a number one seed like they are, kind of a team to kind of fall behind during the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that we're going to be following them well into December.
Where's the best place to report on a ball game from? Best place to do your reporting from? Maybe vantage point. I don't know. Maybe consideration how well you're looked upon when you come in there. Whatever. As far as I'll tell you, John Swihart did a good job last Friday night. When he has to work in that press box, I got to give Swihart a couple of check pluses. What he did in there.
Yeah, there are so many folks around Guilford County and the Triad region in general, coaches, ADs who are incredibly hospitable, who take great care of us. Vantage point, I think I would probably go with either Northwest or Northern. From a very selfish standpoint, the way their press boxes are set up with a lot of open windows, there's very few obstructions. I see the game very well there. You're not up quite as high as you are at Dudley or a few other places, but they're great. A lot of places the folks are really hospitable. I mean, we're lucky to do what we get to do, and I try to remind myself of that every Friday night, even when things get a little weird sometimes or the weather is a little bit of a factor later in the season. We had some cold nights last year during the playoffs. I mean, I was wearing gloves typing a few times. I'm sure you were hanging onto that mic and losing the feeling
one
in your
hand
hands.
in the pocket, one hand on the mic, yeah.
But we have some great facilities. Tarpley Stadium at Dudley is a great facility, the work that they've done. I was at Southeast last week for the first time since Bill Slayton Stadium was updated, and they kept the press box, the newer press box side intact, and that's a little tight, but a great place to watch a game, and they've done the other side of that field very well. You know, we've got good facilities here. We really do, and I don't think people should take that for granted. Even the older places, you know.
What's the toughest place, though? Toughest vantage point? Maybe not the worst. We'll call it. What's the toughest place? I know Smith is kind of tough. It's been tough at Smith.
Smith is a little tricky. Yeah, they could use a renovation.
Yeah. The Bostic brothers there last week. They should have left maybe a small check at the gates. This to help these guys.
Yeah,
it has to be the same thing that was there when they were there. It probably hasn't been changed any.
Yeah, it's seen better days. The windows don't always stay open unless you've got a board or a tree limb to prop them open.
Too, yeah.
But you know,
and nothing against Rob McCullough. It is what it is. He's got to deal with it and keep working. I think he does a fine job.
He does a great job.
It's tough.
And if you need something from Rod, he's there to help you with it. Yeah. So you know, I can't complain. Like I said, I consider myself lucky to do what I do, and I'm not going to complain.
Now, how much time, as far as the overall goes in this is a basketball question. We're going to kind of switch fields.
And I've got a story on our private schools tomorrow, a couple of which have already started in tomorrow's paper and on our website.
How much time will you spend on the publics versus the privates, and how do you balance out that time? Because the privates have got Mr. Fowles, take care. Good to see you. Fowles family in the house tonight. Kyle Fowles' son, Southeast Guilford many years back. But how do you balance the time between the public school basketball, the private school basketball? You got girls and girls and boys both. Plus the privates these days, there's been such a pilgrimage toward their direction. They brought so much talent in. It makes it tough because they've got the top talent. But how do you balance out the two?
Well, I think you're always trying to walk the line of gauging reader interest. How much are readers or listeners, obviously, interested in the best teams in terms of record and talent, and how much of it is school loyalties, and you know which schools have the larger fan bases. I think you kind of walk that line. I don't think there was any question last year for you and I when we were at those Greensboro Day Wesleyan basketball games that those were the places to be those nights. Those were some great basketball games between those teams. They met 3 times. One 4 overtime game, the one Wesleyan win, the Greensboro Day win during the regular season at Wesleyan. Wesleyan was a tight game, and then Greensboro Day beats them in the state final. I think last year it was a little easier to follow more of the public schools simply because Page had such a strong team last year.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle this year. There's no getting around the number of players that they've lost to either A, graduation, or B, transfers to other schools. Northwest will be very strong this year. I look for Northwest to definitely be the best.
If you look at the toughest program overall, public, it's got to be Northwest. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. But the girls program, the boys program, there's a load out there, right? That girls program, if they don't get beyond the regional championship game to the state final this year, I think it's a step backward.
Yeah, they're probably going to end up having to deal with Myers Park again.
They got to beat Myers Park this time.
And Reynolds in Winston-Salem was very strong last year. They didn't have to play them.
Ardrick Hill had those young Muhammad's daughters.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talent with those teams, but I think to your point of Northwest being probably maybe replacing Page over the last year or two as a preeminent basketball school. Can't overlook Dudley either. Dudley's a strong from Southwest. It seems, to your point, that the schools that are good in boys right now in the public schools tend to be good in girls. Southwest is another example of that. If I were giving you sort of a preview of our basketball polls on the boys' side, I think you'll see Northwest and Southwest be the first two public school teams.
The Langley twins will have to be part of the jump this year then.
There's another Langley coming too.
Is there a third?
There's a third
beside the twins? You got the two twins ninth grade, then there's another after that too?
Yes.
There's a ton up there.
Yeah, and that's a talented team. The problem that they get into occasionally, and Page was a prime example of it last year, teams that can pound you in the half court.
Inside,
Page destroyed them. I beat them by almost 40, and it could have been worse.
That was a crazy turn of events too, and then they got blasted by Page, and Southwest later got their game back together, made a good run toward the end. But Monk is the key to that girls' game, man. Shonda Monk, she's going to be one of the best around. She's got to get some help. Those Northwest girls out there. If you mentioned Coach Kipley's daughter, if she's there now, she's got to be a post presence of some sort among those girls too. And they had some good girls coming back and going along with all those kids.
Well, she's at a different level in terms of size. I mean, the girls that they had coming back were in the 6 foot, maybe 6'1" range. Where she could really help them is one of the teams that we haven't mentioned in basketball, Northern Guilford, has Alyssa Kinane coming back, who was a tremendous freshman last year.
And Rubikevich too, for those.
Yeah, Cassie was a good player. They've got a lot of talent coming back also. On the girls' side, they in Northwest, I think that's going to be a pretty interesting matchup. Northwest was a little too experienced for them this past year, but a young Northern team. If Alyssa Kinane improves as much this year as she did last year, and some of their other players grow up a little bit, those games, I think you'll see them in the HACO final, and I think that's going to be a war between those two teams when they do play different conferences and different classifications. But both of those teams are going to be players in the state tournament this year.
We all may have done too good of a job promoting Campbell Carter. I understand Campbell's not playing this year.
Yep.
She's going to go into the music world. And she'll do fine there too.
She is great singing the national anthem. I've got to give a shout out. I was in Southeast
last week,
on Friday night, and the Southeast Guilford JV girls cheerleaders, a group of them, sang the anthem a cappella. They were in the press box with the mic right behind me, and they were impressive. That was. I wish I had a recording of them doing that anthem.
We've got
they were
one
amazing.
on the website somewhere. We do.
There you go.
What happened? I told Dennis, people listen that you may think they sound like they're right in the press box. They are.
They are. They were right behind me in the press box. I had a front row seats for it.
Unreal.
You know, those ladies and Campbell Cargo.
The Campbell Cargo Paige Grimsley.
Doing the anthem. They're amazing. I mean, we have great football talent, great basketball, great athletic talent. Then we've got some pretty darn good musical talent around here too. And you talk about the bands of some of these schools.
Oh yeah.
Dudley's band, rocking the house, at all their home games. I mean, a lot of talent.
Dudley, and I'll close with this because this is one thing that stands out. We talked about things that stand out from last week. The thing that caught my attention, I mentioned the Guilford game with the defense from Hampton City dead. We mentioned Young and Hooker, how close they were 1 yard separate those two guys, total offense. But when Dudley came out to the pregame warm-up, and this is all in fun now, don't take this the wrong way, just fun ways for people to follow us. It just kind of caught my attention when they said, Coach Dolores Beskin, we're in the house, we're in the Panthers. They did that at South End. That's getting them fired up. You're in the house. I love that chant he does. Yeah. No matter where they go. I mean, it's tough. You know, the guys play whatever, but I say when they do it at Dudley, a couple of years ago, a visiting team came in, our visiting team kind of running back, where are our heaters? Get our heaters in. Man, we don't need the heaters. We're going to do our chant. And the Dolores Beskin gets that team going. It's sharp.
Yeah, it's the tradition of that program. We've got some great traditions around here. Like I said, we're blessed really to be able to cover and report on the kids and the coaches and the communities here. It's just a lot of fun for me. I get paid for it, and I don't want to stop getting paid, and I'd actually like to be paid a little more, but we have a good job, and it's fun.
It keeps everybody, it's like you're at a game every day of the week sometimes. Basketball starts, it's like, man, what day are they not playing these days?
Private schools, Greensboro Day had a game Monday night with Delaney Rudd's new school, Forest Trail over in Kernersville. You know, they're playing, they're going to be playing Arden Christ School in a great event that Rick Lewis of the Hoop Phenom Report is putting on at Forsyth Country Day this week, and Oak Hill Academy's there. It was going to be kind of a showcase for Harry Giles with 2 games. He's not going to be playing. I'm sure he'll be there, but they'll be playing. Greensboro Day is playing Christ School from up in Arden, where the Plumleys of Duke fame are from. Now, there's going to be a lot of good. Jason Tatum, I believe, is going to be there. The other Duke recruit. There's going to be a lot of talent there. If you want to see some high school basketball, if you're not sick of high school, we want you at a football game Friday night. You might miss some Friday night basketball, but Saturday night, get over to Forsyth Country Day if you want to see some great basketball.
Joe, let's let you roll out. Good to have you in.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
We could go longer. We got a new group coming in from High Point Christian
Bring it.
Academy. You're well those guys too, well aware of those young men, the job they've done. So
should have mentioned them in teams. They're in the state semifinals this week. So
and tomorrow night at 6, by the way. So
correct.
6, but Ray Gap wants to get a little earlier.
That's a haul from out there where they're coming
from Georgia. I don't know how they got in that conference they're in with some of those guys and how they ended up, but they're doing okay coming this way.
Very good, sir. Thank you.